Christmas isn't meant to be just one day, night, but it goes on into 12 holy days and nights. And then typically, tradition says it ends, today's the last of the 12 holy days, nights. And also it's the Leo day, because you go through the signs of the zodiac as you go through the 12. And then you close with, now it going into Epiphany. And, the word should be kind of obvious what it means. You have an epiphany, it's an insight. But Epiphany celebrates a couple of things. But one, the Wiseman having and it's great because they were considered like the pagans. They were considered the, Gentiles who came in and they followed the stars. They knew something phenomenal was happening. It was like the greatest day in history. They could tell astrologically. So they're guided by the stars, to find the birth of this deliverer. So it's quite profound if you think about it. And, so we're really Epiphany is really celebrating the fact that humans can have revelations like that. They can have epiphanies, they can have insights that say, the greatest guidance in our lives. So that's like, and they call them wise men for a reason. It actually, the words were magis, which meant magician. And at that time, especially in the Far East, Middle East, magi meant wise men, but it really meant metaphysicians. It meant people that were philosophers mixed with, occultists mixed with channels, and so on. So they were completely aware individuals. Caspar, Melchior, Balthazar, these three wise men. And actually, by the way, just as a note, there were a couple of waves of wise men that came from around the world. It wasn't just one time three wise men, just as a footnote. There were several that came along. But we celebrate these three. So part of Epiphany is that we're kind of commemorating, wow, that metaphysicians, New Agers of the old age, actually saw that this was coming, where a lot of people are closed-minded. Like right now, what do you think what we're doing right now? We just started the year 2020. Just that in itself is great symbolism. 2020. Like, maybe this year we'll get a clue. The year's even supporting that we'll be able to see clearly. Get some third eye Visine, and I can see. So we'll talk about that down, in the next week or two, maybe 2020 and all that significance. But it's fantastic if you think about it. So vision, a new vision. We're all inheriting a new vision. A Course in Miracles closes its text with chapters related to new vision and revelation, meaning the veil is getting thinner and thinner. Now the bad news is, the veil's getting thinner, you think, well, then everybody just starts walking into ascension. Well, as the veil gets thinner, it's almost like a womb preparing way up inside for birth. And so the process, the labor pains. So there's all that, the body adjusting, the pelvis having to adapt and open a bit more. So there's some birth pains with that. Well, birth pains for a human being giving birth to a child is nothing compared to the earth's version of birth pains. If her pelvis has to open to birth us into ascension, now mind you, if we would be cooperative children, this would all happen harmoniously. But what happens instead? Breech births and reluctant children, and all the various things that can go wrong metaphorically with a birth. And so if her pelvic bones have to kind of open up and relax, those are tectonic plates. Think about that. If her water breaks, tsunamis and so on and so on. We'll get into that maybe in the next week or two. But think about that. So we're talking about vision. Before this is coming, the wise men have visions. Before the birth, they already know. They have to come for months, preparing for months on that journey to get to that place of birth. So they call it following the star. It really means following the stars. So this is fantastic. These guys are having visions before it happens. You and I are supposed to have the same kinds of visions for our own lives as well as planetary, but for our own lives. Insights and vision as to what direction we're going. Where's the world going? You know, do you see the signs? Do you see it's time to birth something new? Do you see it's time to prepare and adapt to your new life? Some people can't even figure out how to get a minor adjustment in their day-to-day life, let alone something else. You know, some people will, you know, oh, I've been in pain for years, a hip or a shoulder. And it could be, believe it or not, it could be one bone chiropractic adjustment and it's gone. But people just, well, I don't have time. I don't know who to go to, and so on and so on. So just a bone adjustment that people could have to get out of pain, and they still often will not do it. So thinking globally, how do you expect the human race to get it? You and I should make sure that we don't complain about humans not getting it if we're not individually getting it. You know, if you're eating foods that you're allergic to, for example, start catching on that you're allergic and make some changes. If you can't change one dietary thing in terms of allergies, don't even talk about the world changing politically or in any other form. You have no right to talk about others when you yourself haven't made changes. Talk about how messed up politics or religion happens to be, and yet you're a full-blown addict still of some kind. You know, take care of yourself. Be an example first and foremost. All right? Now, Epiphany is a matter of, do you see the signs of this coming? Do you see the signs of not just glorious things? Do you see the signs of you needing to stop that relationship? Do you see the signs? Have an epiphany. We could call this talk today, I should have had a V8. You know that commercial? Remember that? So it's like insight. See, now he's either laughing at the joke from a minute ago, or he's so psychic he's laughing at the next joke. The one I haven't said yet. Isn't that amazing? So it's Sedona for you. So Epiphany is also about celebrating not just the Wiseman and so on and so on, and our own need to have epiphanies. It's also considered a celebration of manifestations. All manifestations, but there are some key few manifestations that Epiphany, which is today, tomorrow, it's that we're commemorating that experience. Now, in the life of Jesus, the obvious first manifestation was the birth of Jesus. Now, the birth of Jesus is, you know, really, you could talk about that for week after week, every Sunday for a whole year and not cover all the depth and symbolism. This was like the hero of the sun in pagan tradition. It's the Messiah to the Jews. It's Krishna in the Far East. It's so many things. It's Osiris to the Egyptians. It's so many, Viracocha to some in the Americas, Quetzalcoatl, other parts of the Americas. It's the return of the sun, the return of God-man. And so Jesus steps in and embodies it. He's not a mythology of it. He embodies it. So the birth of Jesus is huge in so many levels, in so many ways that it's hard for the mind to even fathom it. But just to soak it in, that we can do. You might not be able to wrap your mind around it, but you can wrap your heart around the idea that something incredible happened. The presence of complete transformation came to us, to all of us on the planet, and will never be the same. Now, it seems like it's the same because life moves along a moment at a time, but as it's understood in Hindu traditions and so forth, humanity reached its lowest point around this time as well. We're actually finally on the rise again in consciousness. You could say we reached the lowest point, whether you think of that now we're going upwards as a positive, or the fact that we even had to reach a low point. We don't need to do that. But human beings believed, man, we just learned the hard way. People will not get it until, and we have to say, cancel. We're going to change that order. We don't have to burn 50 foods before we have to, finally get something to eat for dinner. We can actually get things right. And that's through having spiritual conscience and conscientiousness. So all of this is going to start changing, and people will start to see it and feel it more and more. But again, the labor pains are going to try to distract us from recognizing that things are changing for the positive. It won't look like it right now. And that's been said by Jesus when he channeled A Course in Miracles. It's been said by the visionaries in Medjugorje to Mother Mary. It's been said by many channels that although things might still visually look challenging, you have to go inside to be able to feel the difference, that something is shifting in a positive sense. And then there's going to be people arguing with you. Oh no, look, just read the news and listen to what's going on. Use these senses and it will not look good. You have to close your eyes, your ears, your mouth, close it all, and ask for another view. And then what will happen is you'll learn to plug in to the divine consciousness. When you plug into the divine, something happens. It's amazing. You start to go, wow, this is what the greats meant by everything is okay. That everything is in divine order. I thought we meant that, like we said that, a bumper sticker. It's all in divine order. And I thought that meant everything was good. Humans' version of everything's in divine order is nothing compared to the real version. And to know the real version is not going to come with you reading more positive articles. It helps, that's all, it helps. Or listening to more positive talks. All of these things help. You have to plug in and feel it. You can't, of this, I can do nothing. Of inner spirit, that's where everything changes. So, epiphanies are part of the ancient times of the wise men having epiphanies, but it's also celebration of manifestations. The first, this birth of Jesus, even the ascended masters refer to him as the master of masters. It's this birth of Jesus, not the person, but it's that this person was birthed and then chose to become the Christ. Jesus could have chosen not to, just so we all know. Could have chosen not to, because that's free will. When he went in the desert, which is another one of our celebrations of manifestations. One of them is the baptism with John the Baptist. So the first epiphany is Jesus' birth, the manifestation. Second one is the wise men getting clue of that and catching on and coming to see him. The third is John, and then there's also the feast where he manifests wine, for the people at this wedding party. So those are the four manifestations that are celebrated typically in the feast or celebration of manifestations. So at some point, he goes, and after 40 days and nights in the desert, we know the Wiseman story, but the next one, after 40 days and night in the desert, Jesus comes and gets baptized. This is very powerful stuff, because one of these is telling us about you and I deciding what's the birth of Jesus symbolize? You and I birthing not spiritually. See, Christmas isn't the spiritual birth of the Christ. It's the physical birth of Jesus who becomes. Easter is technically, you could say, the birth of the Christ spiritually, because that's when Jesus basically, it all culminated in that moment when he said, "It is finished." He didn't say, "Oh, this has been a waste of time." It didn't mean, "Oh man, we're really finished." He said, "This is accomplished." His mission, I did it. Really, you could translate it as, "Woohoo! It's like, celebrate. Wow, we did it, man. This is fantastic." We're not talking it. I did it. I became it. When he says it is accomplished, he's saying it's done. A person chose to birth into the Christ, embody it, live it all the way through, and not choose to believe anything else. Not an easy course, so to speak, not an easy course, but one that was crucial. And it became the awakening of all of us because we're all connected. So, on that note, Jesus goes 40 days, 40 nights, the desert, and he's tempted there and so on. Now, you could say he's tempted by the devil. You could say he's tempted by illusion. You could say he's tempted by his ego. Whatever you want to call it, something was won. A victory was accomplished there because the ego or your, evil or whatever you want to call it, something was tempting him to forget who he was. Something was saying, "Hey, listen, Jesus, you are really incredible." "Oh, well, thanks for noticing. And, I just think you could be like the greatest person that's ever lived." Okay. So much so that we'll give you all kingdoms. We'll give you the whole world. Why did it tempt him and offer him the whole world? Which, by the way, it could have done. He could have become a human ruler over the whole world. That was where he was tempted. He's being tested with the world because his consciousness is that big. Some of us can't get past lunch. I'm absolutely not eating anything more that has wheat or gluten kinds of foods. Oh, what's that, a cheesecake? You know, it's like you just can't picture, you know, making it. He's able to say, you can offer me the whole world. But what good is that going to do me if I lose my soul? See, if you get your soul, you have the whole world. You just don't care that it's in a material sense. But your needs will be taken care of. So it's kind of cool. You know, he's being told you can have the world. No, what good is that going to be? You know, you're hungry. You've been fasting 40 days, 40 nights. Turn the rocks into bread. Why? What good is that? It isn't bread that feeds me. See, the ego is working him over, and it doesn't know what to do when it's being given, you know, healthy, true answers. He's at that state of mind that Buddha's, you know, under the Bodhi tree saying, shooting arrows at me that doesn't matter. Offer me this, tempt me with right, left, up, down, doesn't matter. So you're neutralizing, and that's the great, great mastermind to say, no, thank you. Not like, no, thank you, I must resist this temptation. It's no, thank you, because you actually are not offering me anything of value. That's the point. When you have to deal with your temptations, which again is at the end of, you know, this is when we're going through 40 days, 40 nights, because you birth the Christ physically when you decide to get on the path. So you're birthing, like the Jesus being born is you getting on the path, you could say. In a sense, the three wise men is like saying you're attracting miracles because you got on the path, you're manifesting a better life. But the wise men in our lives, and not just Jesus' wise men, is also when you start having healthier support systems. Who are the wise men? If you decided to get on the path, who are your wise men? They're your sponsors in your 12-step group. They're your teachers here. See? And so on. That's your first two steps of your 4 epiphanies that Jesus had, primarily these 4 that we commemorate anyway. So there's your version. Now you've got it. But those first 2 have to do with the lowest level of birthing the Christ. I'm on the path and I have some support systems. Nice job. Then we go to this third, which is you go through the desert, the dark night of the soul, except not the way an average human being is. You're going through the dark night of the soul. You're going to work through your personal inventory. You're going to soul search to see your gifts and challenges and see what you're really all about. Personal honesty, responsibility. And that's kind of like going through that 40 days and nights. But Jesus is then baptized. So we're moving from the first 2 to the second 2 miracles of manifestation. So this third one is a little bit of trial and testing, but you come out with this baptism. So now it's like you are being baptized, not the physical birth, baptized into a body. Now you're being baptized spiritually. Because now you're saying, I'm not just getting on the path and want support systems. I'm absolutely dedicated to go all the way. So now you go the third step. And that's like, you know, and technically it's kind of like moving through the chakras upwards. So you make it through this one and you're saying, I'm ready. Bring it on. The baptism. The baptism isn't something that you get in a choice to get in a group or have sponsors. This is a spiritual internal experience. And when you do, incidentally, you can say, well, I'm just dedicating on the path more, or you can say I'm dedicating towards the highest. You can say I just want to read another book, or you can say I want complete highest consciousness possible. Any change is good, but I would just go for it. I would just say go for it. Like, why go? Can I have 10% enlightenment? It just doesn't really make that much sense to me. But I don't shame anybody if that's all you can do, because some of you are going to go, well, I'm new at this, so I'll take 5%, and that's fine. Others are saying, I'm not new at this, but man, he's talking about, I'm totally familiar with these first 2 levels. He's talking about like there's another whole level, which is spiritual awakening. And that's kind of intimidating, some of you might think. Some of you might say, I can even hear Michael saying, you know, it's like you go through the 40 days, 40 nights. You know, I can't go 4 minutes without my body telling me what I need to do, my patterns, my addictions controlling my life. Because the 40 days, 40 nights, it's like a fast. So when we went into this 12 holy days and nights, that's how I treated it. To me, it was like a fast of sorts. I just did my best to stay a little more here instead of over here and here. Swinging a little left and right, which we all do, just as much as I could, just stay here. Mind, body, and soul as best I could. And it's not that God needs you to. God's not saying, oh, you missed it by a day. You know, if you mess up on the last day. God sees us as glorious and holy. But what's nice is when you say, I did it, you're doing it for you. So that you then can be taken to another level because of your own beliefs in your goodness. It's not God that needs to believe in your goodness. God can't even see our non-goodness. It only sees us as He created us to be. So now we're ramping it up. We're saying, we're going to go another level here. Spiritual. I'm making a spiritual commitment towards the highest, which I use the term Christ consciousness. Now, when I do that, believe it or not, energetically, and in terms of spiritual hierarchy, I've mentioned this before when I did a talk on angels, Archangel Michael is personally assigned to any soul that says, I'm now committed to awakening the Christ in myself. For me to remember my divinity. Not, I would like to read a good book. I'm talking about, I'm ready to really remember my divinity. When you make that choice, Jesus in the desert, you're really saying something that's beyond words. It's profound. And you are assigned not an angel and a guide and your deceased relatives to kind of support. They also bring in the guns, the big guns, and it's Archangel Michael. Because Archangel Michael represents the guardian of the way. So when you say, I'm ready to know the way, the truth and the life, what is the way? The Christ. But the way also means, the way isn't just the path to God. The way is, I am the way and the truth and the life. Not the ego self that's talking, but the part I'm choosing to remember. The part I'm choosing to remember is the way. How could my remembrance not be the way to remember? So, yes, I'm with it. I got it. I'm ready to roll. And then, as they say, Jesus makes it through his test. The angels come and minister to him. Partly what that means is new assignments. Angels have come in to say, we're ready to take him the rest of the way, as it's going to do for you and I. Then there's one more, and that's the wedding. And what's kind of nice about this wedding, they say it's a miracle of manifestations, because now Jesus is going to launch into his ministry as the Christ. See, this is when you and I start to own our ministry. It doesn't mean a talker, like a talk that you're giving, or a role as a speaker or author. It could be in any form of your life. When you say, I'm ready to live the Christ life. I'm ready to live, and you can use different terms. It could be my I am presence. Just decide if you're ready to commit to that. And if and when you're ready to commit to that, onwards we go. And the wedding feast marks, it's technically not his first miracle, but it's the first miracle in that region, and it's the first one noted and remembered by these people. So he comes in, and it is important that it's amongst his people, because those are the people who would most likely doubt him, because he came from those people. What do you think that's symbolic of? You and I having to deal with people that scrutinize, that think they know us. They're like, Jesus, what do you mean Jesus is working miracles? Isn't he the guy that used to take out the trash for Mary and Joseph? I mean, it's like they try to do that to you and I. And it's like, no matter what you become, they refuse to see you as any different. And that's tempting. It's like in the desert again, for us to feel slighted by them or even by our inner selves. So all that said, he does this miracle where the short version of it is the wedding feast, and it's really important. It's a really big part of the wedding that the great wines are served, and they ran out of wine. So that's like a huge negative stigma. It's like, oh man, that's a bad omen. And so Jesus is asked, would you help? And he says, well, why? What do you want? Some people, there's a lot of confusion about what he's doing there. He's refusing to work a miracle. Why? He's just messing with them. No, probably not. So you look at this and ask yourself, why did Jesus at first resist? Why did he say, what do you want from me? Well, the wine ran out. Can you do something? They must have already known by now that he could do something, or they wouldn't have asked him. Right? What were they saying? Can you head to 7-Eleven and pick up some, is that what they were asking? No. They must have known. So were they asking to show him off and his powers? That's another theory out there. But Jesus is aware. So when he says, what do you want from me? What he's trying to do is get them to own who he is. You understand? He's trying to get them. What do you want? Well, we need some wine. Yeah, and what makes you think I can help? He's trying to get them to go, oh, yes, you're him, aren't you? You can do this, can't you? He's trying to get them to own it. I mean, I do that in my life at times amongst friends and so sometimes I ask them questions to get them to own. Not that I'm trying to be special or Jesus-y or whatever, but just to get them to own whatever it happens to be in the moment. Whether it's their own goodness or like we say at the end of services, I ask you guys, what did you learn? It's partly to get you to own what you learned. It's not to tell me what I told you. What did you learn? That ownership, that integration. So Jesus, what does he have to do? You know, is it trickery? How does he get the wine to become wine? How does he get the water to become wine? And it's an amazing and beautiful thing, as simple, yet, of course, not so simple for the average person to turn water into wine. But how is that done? What does he do? And it's not about, miracle working is actually not about forcing something to happen. Oh, water, please become wine. You know, this will look good. It's not a begging. It's not a requesting. There's no effort when you're at the highest level of consciousness. All Jesus had to do, the master of all the universe, which is what we ultimately are becoming. All he had to do was walk up to the water and the water blushed in the presence of its master. You get the vibe of that, the feeling, the significance. The water just kind of fell in love and blushed, and it became the finest wine. And that can happen with lovemaking. It can happen with doing a project or a movie. It can, whatever your project, whatever you're into, whatever in the moment, a song. If you approach it from the highest consciousness, it'll write itself through you. It'll become present in some form. Because, like they say, when Jesus was born, this is like another version of, these are celebrations of miracles of manifestation. So it's about God becoming present. So when God becomes present to water and chooses that it be wine, it's going to turn to wine. Because it's all an illusion anyway. It's a hologram. So all you have to do is say, wine, and it becomes what it is. It blushes and says, we hear you. But when they talk about Buddha and the trees bending over his head to shade him on sunny moments or to keep the rain off of him, it's the same concept. The world is not something you have to change. You hold consciousness and it adapts. When he looks at water and prefers to have wine for everybody, because in the moment that seems like the greater good, it turns to wine. It's not an effort. And it could have become orange juice if that's what if he was sitting around a bunch of Floridians, it would have turned to citrus, orange juice. He's just matching what they're asking for in the moment. But who's the he? Jesus that we wish would come back and do that for us, or do we become that consciousness? And that's the key with even the celebration of Epiphany, even with the miracles of manifestation. The first couple have to do with more like the human, my personal life, becoming a bit more Christed. And then the second two steps or miracles that we're commemorating are where I start to embody it spiritually. The first two, because we're humans, we want it to happen down here. So we're improving our lives. So if you're watching this program from here or elsewhere, and you recognize, yes, I've started listening to things like this. I started taking workshops and so on to improve my life. I almost said my wife, but whoever she might be. Maybe that's why I don't have one. So, she's not ready. Yeah, right. So, when you think about this, it's like, I'm ready to improve my life. And that's happening. You're already halfway there, practically. You're already in those first two stages. Give thanks. And if that's all you want to do this lifetime, just get that. But understand that you're bringing light into the first couple of aspects of your being. Humanness. Christ, spirituality on a human plane. But it gets better. We get to and will eventually, at some point or another, we will manifest it on the deeper levels. Spiritual commitment. And I personally think that's a challenge in some ways. I really do. Not only is it challenging for us because it's a process, but human beings don't know what it looks like on that other side. I mean, there's reasons. If you think about the inside manifests outside. When you think you have even the slightest fear of death, it's not just death, it's any change that you can't control and that you don't know the outcome of. So your mortal fear of death is only a symptom. It's actually a symptom of how inside we have this fear of, the other side and the unexpected, the unknowns. And deep down, we sometimes are, learning to understand that, as A Course in Miracles teaches, it's even a fear of God. When people, in spiritual groups, and you talk about oneness with God, and one day we all become one, in the head, you start saying, well, then what? What do you mean, then what? Well, after we become one with God, then what? You get a new stereo. I mean, what do you want me to say? The human mind wants what it wants. Now, I'm not going to buy into this whole oneness with bliss eternally thing. Do I still get to have my swing set? Do I still have my car? And, that's why it's impossible to talk that deeply and that futuristically. So it's kind of like when they're asking Jesus, and then what if, and what if, and then what, and then what? He says, do you have it together so well today that you want to know about tomorrow? You can't even get today right. So it's like, no, let's a day at a time. And in that, we're having guidance to exactly what we need to be doing. We do have free will, but you're never having really free will unless you choose to be free. When you're enslaved by fears, even when you think you're exercising free will, you're not actually exercising free will. Because if you're bound by fear, you're not free. So that's ego-based free will, which is not free at all. It just sounds like it. True free will is that I understand that I am free of my ego. So I can freely choose my higher good. So now I see my life improving constantly. Wow, this is fantastic. And if you think the first shift was fantastic, wait for the second, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth. But the ego is trying to match us all the way. For every nice thing, I'm going to hit you with something else to make you doubt whether you want to keep going. But there's a point where it's positive, 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 negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, and then at some point, positive, 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 and the other just fades away. That doesn't happen typically in the human plane, the 3D plane. What happens is the consciousness shifts enough to where all of a sudden you go, wait, what happened to the third dimensional world? And it's not where you go. It's actually a shift in consciousness. More and more of us are seeing this. But many of us are still seeing the layers of humanness peeling off. And as soon as you get prideful, even if you go, wait, I've had 9 yes, 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 yes. This must be that I'm now totally fifth dimensional and no longer third dimensional. Then it's going to come to you again. One of those others to hit you. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually a lesson in humility. Like, oops, okay, got it. And then continue, yes, 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 all positives. So please remember that in these shifts into higher consciousness, you and I are programmed to believe that with all of this, there's a saying, you can't get to heaven other than going through hell. Got to go through hell to get to heaven. Who made that up? Where did that come from? That wasn't God. The ego is always telling us, you want to improve your life? You'd be better off laying low. Just live meek and meager. Lay low, man. Don't arouse suspicions of anything. Then you might get by. And that's why that's why the majority of the world is impoverished in so many ways. If not financially, then emotionally. Because people want to live low, and there's a reason. It's their beliefs and our collective program that if you try to rise in consciousness, something's going to undermine you. And technically, it's true. But you and I are not supposed to care about that. Go anyway, because it ends up good at the end. But if I try to raise consciousness, then all my unraised consciousness stuff surfaces. What's wrong with that? Well, it might hurt. It won't if you're not attached to it. I promise. So a child picks up a sharp knife and you try to take it. No, and it's fighting and crying louder and louder. But you know you've got to take the knife out of its hand. It could hurt itself. Right? And that's what happens spiritually. But no, I want to improve my life. But no, don't take it. This isn't a relationship. This is a person that's messed up. This isn't today in the moment, this moment when you're choosing God as your guide that you created this relationship. This one's from like Palestine from 5,000 years ago, and you were their slave. Do you really not want to get out of that yet? You know, you were building bricks for the Egyptians, and you were one of them. You were burned at the stake by this person. No wonder you said, they're hot. You know, it's like, we're a perfect match. Get it? Sorry. Go ahead. Come on. Yeah, I got more of those metaphors. You see? But these just come to me, you know, what can I say? So you do, you meet someone and you think this is the magic, and you're interpreting familiar with magic. And the familiar could be they killed you. I know you, don't I? I'm feeling really strong connection with you. Of course you do. I was the guy with the black hood and the big hatchet, you know? So, don't I know you? Peekaboo. So, what are we going to do with this? Swear to your goal in God. I'm here to wake up. I'm here to be enlightened. I'm here to be one with God and all my brothers and sisters. That's the goal. Not singling one out. I'm not saying don't have a partnership. I'm saying watch that compulsions lead you in those relationships. Let it be inspiration that brings you to who you're with and, in what form. Not to have children that are called accidental pregnancies. Even if you thought it was an accident, stop and make it a conscious decision now. Don't give birth to them in the vibration of an accident. That doesn't feel good. Then you can only get a child that's willing to feel low about themselves enough to be somebody's accident. Make it a conscious thing. Say, nope, even if it seemed like an accident, on some level I must have been conscious, and I'm conscious now. So let's start welcoming this child in like it's a gift. This person and I somehow birthed this beautiful gift. And then never forget that that soul is a gift. Not because you birthed it, because it is a spark off of the light of God that is coming through you and trusting you for now to be its parent. And take care of it and help it, whatever soul it is. I choose an evolved soul to come into this body so that we can create holy relationships. So that I can learn and demonstrate what it's like to be a healthy, loving parent. Like the Mother Mary. Ask yourselves, is it more important that if Mother Mary was a actual human virgin? Biologically, anatomically, is it better that, or is it better if her consciousness was pure? Think about that. Some people, I was talking to somebody yesterday or the day before, they were talking about, there's records of people that lived at the time of Jesus, and they talk about what he looked like, and he was stunning in so many ways. Golden and brown reddish mixture, hair color, and lean, and just great features, and slender, creative looking hands. But the way he walked, some of them said, he walked with such countenance about him, such presence, command of words. He was serious yet loving and gentle. I mean, they were like wowed by him. And they talk about those eyes. He had these still gray or blue like eyes that were penetrating. Now, all the things they said, handsome, beautiful, whatever. All the things they said. Is it more true and important that he was physically appealing, or could it be his presence was such that made them go, wow, about his appearance? I tell you, honestly, it's not just his look. That's fine. They felt something, and then the eyes have to figure it out. Must be those eyes. That's what the human head does. if I'm so drawn, it must be, and the human mind wants to attach something. Humans have forgotten to just go wow because of wow. You know, like just wow, that presence. You know, and I remember seeing a gal once. I was walking into, for many years, they don't have one here, but for many years, one of my favorite fine dining restaurants, a thing, I don't know if you've heard of it, called Denny's. And and I've always loved Denny's because they would give me several cups of butter that I could put on my synthetic hash browns. So I would get a double square of synthetic hash browns with extra butter. So I pour it on, then pepper, you know. And so I've got this amazing meal that I've created. Well, I was walking in to Denny's, and this gal walked by. She had such an incredible, perfect glow about her. I mean, I was struck, and it was like, what was that? And some other guy that was walking in with me, he saw it too. And then he said, I think she's early pregnant. She had a little bit of the tummy, the pregnant belly. And so to his head right away, he went into, it's because she's got that new mother glow. See, the head always wants to make a reason instead of just, but I was still in a moment of wow, and you put it into my head that it was something else. People have a hard time with that. When miracles happen, humans have to come up with some, they say in all the movies, there must be some rational explanation. That thing that makes you think there has to be a rational explanation is the thing that screws up everything. Because it no longer allows you to just go on a feeling level. What's happening? I've had people so often do exercises in workshops of mine where I ask them to close their eyes to see the things I'm describing, and they can clearly see them. I won't tell them what to expect. They'll all just see those things with eyes closed. And there's still sometimes, and rarely, but sometimes there'll be somebody who go, it must have been. It must have been this, or it could have been that, and maybe the lighting outside, and then I just go, yeah, you're right. And I let them have that. Because I'm not going to try to convince people of something they don't want to believe. That might be your role. I don't feel really into that. I'm not the type of teacher, when people say, well, somebody doesn't like what you're saying, why don't you tell them this? Why don't you? I'm actually not an evangelist. I'm not here to convince people of things they don't want to believe. That's not my mission. That's not my path. Could be yours, but it's not mine. I'm just moving. I just go. I don't keep going back and try to convince people of things that, keep them, it's like you probably listen to someone else that's not moving like that. So the Epiphany is all about, I'm ready to know, Epiphany, to know, to have insight and clarity. And so my epiphanies, my insights, my clarity, it's about, one level, a second, and then on up to that fourth level. And that wine making is wine, manifestation. That's a great miracle. But it takes place, that miracle, at a wedding. So Jesus is seemingly launching his ministry with a miracle at a wedding. In case you don't know, the book of Revelation, the Bible, ends with a story about a wedding too. One is about physical wine being manifested. One is about spiritual wine. It's the wedding. One is about a human wedding they all attended. Another is about your wedding. Your soul with your spirit. I'm going to give up my body, meaning my focus and obsession about human stuff, whether it's money or, just the stuff of human. We're not shaming any of it. I said obsession. It's great to have. It's different if you obsess. That's why the saying is, the love of money is the root of all evil. It's actually not money. It's the love of material that is the root of all evil. The root of all evil technically is to believe that you're separate from God. But in the earth plane, they were just trying to emphasize that our attachments to materiality keeps us stuck in materiality. And we don't just like it, we're attached to it. We love money, material, etc., etc. It's not the money that's the problem. It's why would you love something that is nothing but dust? It kind of makes no sense. So these things are advisory. They're not commandments or harsh. It's saying, why would you want to love something that's turning to dust? Why would you want to cling to something that's nothing but chemical? It's just, matter. Dust of the earth. If you're going to get attached to something, how about attaching to something that is real, eternal, powerful, perfect, whole, etc.? So that beautiful manifestation of wine at a wedding is also telling us about our impending, positively speaking, the wedding that we're going to have. My body is going to give itself up to my soul. My soul is going to surrender to my spirit to spirit, capital S. That's how we came in, and that's how we're going back. A step at a time in consciousness, sort of steps down and then steps up in through consciousness. So this whole process, I love it. I just love the whole process, what it's really trying to teach us, what it's mirroring to us. So today, in going towards closing, we're going into Epiphany now. And, there's actually a tradition, primarily in Catholicism, where people will chalk their doors, meaning, I saw somebody posted this, I think I saw it on my Facebook group, and plus somebody, I think, emailed me and asked me about it. But, the chalking of the doors, you take a piece of chalk because it's easily washed off when you want, and you can put, a note above your door. Now, people can get superstitious and say, I'm going to put this magical formula over my doorway. But it's really, like the year 2020. And then you have plus and these three initials with a plus in between each. And what it's saying is the year 20 over here and 20 over here with pluses and three initials in between. So 2020, it means this year, here's what I'm committed to. So picture above your doorway. In fact, we'll do this as an exercise, as a meditation, so I'll come back to it in a sec. But they do the chalking of the door. Now, churches sometimes do it in large letters above their doorways. You do it above your home door. But you could just do it on a Post-it if you have to, if that's what you want to do. You make this note, which I'll explain as we do it at meditation. You put this note by your door so it says to you every time I go out the door, this presence, it's kind of a Christ invocation, is with me. It reminds me to live my life. That's a metaphor of going out the door. I choose going out and coming in. I choose this consciousness. So it's kind of like a welcome mat, but a spiritual version. And instead of just welcome, it's remember, take this with you today, and out to the day you go. And on your way home, remember, take a breath, take this with you, even before, not only the day you're leaving out, but what you want to bring back into the home. Remembering, constant remembering. And if you want to, you put it on your bathroom mirror, wherever it'll be, your bedroom door, wherever would be a great reminder to yourself. I walk into the day dedicating myself to the Christ life, and I return and I rest tonight, also dedicating. Is that making sense? Cool. So, remember, Epiphany. You can say, I'm just merely commemorating 3 wise men from 2,000 years ago. I think that's nice. But it's also supposed to be, and how is that in your life? What do those miracles of manifestation symbolize to you? The birthing of the Christ to you. I'm ready to dedicate my human life. Good. Let's do it. To a better life. Nice. Let's do it. And then the wise men. So I have better support systems and, so forth around me to bring me a better life. They bring Jesus gold, frankincense, myrrh. Those are the gifts that come to me when I dedicate to a better life. I start doing, in my lower level of manifestation miracles, I'm getting into a consciousness of improving my humanness, and so I start manifesting better abundance. You thought it was all about taking those workshops and watching those videos on manifesting abundance and, by various names I won't go into. These popular trends about more. That's one little tiny facet in one bigger part of my life. Don't make that thing your goal. Heck, that's only one spoke on the wheel. So I want to relationships and health and prosperity, all these areas of my human life. Great. Gold, frankincense, myrrh. Nice. And that's the lower 2 levels. Now I'm ready to dedicate, if I am indeed, to a spiritual level. And take that spiritual level. That baptism into that, your commitment. And then the next and final level, it's time for me to completely wed myself with the divine. And don't think it's all or nothing. Technically, you and I are doing bits of all 4 of these at different times in our life. At best, we usually are focusing on the lower 2. But it's not an all or nothing where I have this spiritual wedding and then I never know who I am now. I just walk around completely blissed one with God. You'll get bits of this with your little epiphanies, and the little epiphanies add up to a major revelation of our oneness with God. Let's take a few centering breaths. Setting aside all the stuff of life and the world. When we inhale, hear the words, I am. When you exhale, hear the word relaxed. And do that a few times. Hear it, see it, feel it, believe it. I am. I'm centering with each breath. I'm calming. Good. Today we're doing more of a visualization. Let's imagine if we really got today, if we understood any part of today. Think about what parts you resonated with, breathe them in, kind of like, okay, this is mine now. I get this and I believe it, it's mine. It's not what I'm being told. I get this is my belief. Any part of it, take a moment to do that. And then let's visualize that we're at home. It doesn't matter if home is your car. Whatever home is, wherever home is. And we can repeat the same exercise in our workplace, the visualization or the manifestation. We're doing a visualization and it's up to each of us whether we choose to go home or to work and do this in terms of a manifested version. Let's picture we pick up a piece of chalk. And you can even visualize it to be beautiful paint color. And we walk towards the entrance of the building. Inside. And we're going to, in a moment, we're going to go outside. We can mark this inside and out, but for sure outside. And you think to yourself, am I really ready to commit to a new life? I heard about letting things go last Thanksgiving. I heard about birthing the Christ and all these cool symbolisms of Christmas. Maybe went through the 12 holy days and nights. Am I ready now to actually make the commitment, to sign my name to the contract, that I'm ready to wake up to a whole new level? And a whole new level can be a minor level. You know, it can be safe to you. Something reasonable to your mind, acceptable to your soul. And if ready, in a moment we're going to, inside or out or both, we're going to mark above our door. And it could be to the side of the door, whatever feels right. You're going to put the symbols. 20 plus C plus M plus B plus 20. And the symbolism of the 20 at one end, 20 at the other, the bookends are the year 2020. In between, those are the not only the initials, Caspar, Melchior, and Balthazar, three wise men, symbolic of the three wise concepts in my life. But they also represent a Latin saying that translates to, may Christ bless this home. In Latin, not by coincidence, these three words. May Christ bless this home. It doesn't just mean like, please protect me from all bad people. It means bless this home so that I can remember to live this life in my home. And when I go out of my home, I take this consciousness with me. In a sense, it's like saying, may Christ help me to awaken to my true identity. May Christ be with me today. May I wear the crown of Christ consciousness today. The mind of Christ, as some call it. See yourself doing the markings. 20 CMB 20 with a cross in between each. The cross is sort of like a sanctification. It's not really just a plus sign. May Christ hold presence in this space. Can we do that in our workplace? Take a moment if you can and see that happening. It could even be your workstation. CMB 20. Like a stamp that Revelation tells us you receive from God to mark you as one of His own, meaning one of His awakened children. The opposite of the mark called 666. This is the mark of the Christ. Now imagine that label, that stamp, that remembrance. Imagine that that is put gently, etherically, over your eyes and third eye, blessing your vision so that you learn to see the Christ in others, including yourself. Let the Holy Spirit bring this to you. Do believe. Magic miracles. In comes this beautiful etheric blessing. Bless my eyes. Let this stamp bless my ears. Let this stamp bless my mouth, all the words I would speak or hear spoken of me. Picture opening your palms and letting your palms receive that same mark. All the things that I do, symbolic of our hands' actions. All the things that I would do, being blessed. The things done to me, the things I do. Being blessed with that Christ presence. All that I think, blessed with that Christ presence. And lastly, we want to bless and sanctify also our body. Not just the literal vehicle, but the symbolism of our being, our body. Sanctify that same 20 CMB 20, that same emblem, that same presence of Christ stamp emblem. The body saying, I will not be intimate. The pelvic region with people that are not feeling like it's part of this. We so often slip and share ourselves and our bodies with things that don't resonate with this Christ. So let's just offer that blessing to our body. It's not so much dwell on what I've done that wasn't this. Let's just say from here on, let it feel like it is sanctified in that Christ energy. And it doesn't matter if you think yourself to be, well, I'm not doing intimate stuff anymore anyway. No, do it anyway. Bless your body. A born-again virgin. And then your heart, last but not least. It means not to give your heart away bargaining or in codependent relationships, dysfunction, heart, false versions of love, not you to others nor others to you. Just put the stamp up. Nothing comes to this space called my heart that doesn't resonate with that Christ emblem. I once lived life like I was a constantly crucified person. My hands out saying, go ahead, take advantage. Take your shots, your gossip, your hurt, your hate. Take my money, take my esteem. I bargain it away, my hands open like I'm constantly crucified. Black sheep of the family, misunderstood, etc., etc. Now I stand with my hands out and I feel like a cross of light. So it's not even a cross per se. I'm an emblem of light. My palms, my feet, my crown, everything glowing. My heart center sanctified to a new level of consciousness. I've gone very conscientiously through the holidays, building up to this now. Epiphany, and I get it. I'm having my epiphany and epiphanies resulting in a revelation from you, God, in any way, shape, form, timing of your liking, because I know it's for my greater good. Gently and slowly relax to the breathing again, back into the room again. Take it with you, though. Don't leave the imagery behind. Take it with you into your body, to your muscles, your joints, your lungs, organs, glands, your energy systems, your mind, everything. And then we'll stretch out a little bit. Very nice. Take a breath in, please. And then, good. Again, this time let's hold some toning for a couple of minutes. Together. In. Toning. Keep going. Breathe when you need to. Try to hear each other and blend your sounds. Try to listen. Try to find each other. The sound you're making, not your own, make the group's sound. Deep breath again. And now, keep going. Only people with higher voices, if you don't mind. Higher voices. Breathe, sound. And relax. That's our song to each other, to ourselves, to the universe. Universe, one song, one verse, one song, God's song. We choose to live and dance within that presence. And so it is. Thank you. We're going to take up collection and do our closing prayer. So if you folks could just be as generous as possible. The blue bags are for your love offerings, donations for Sundays, and for whatever you can share. The wicker baskets are just for any extra donations, like towards people of lesser means that we help out, or towards special projects. By the way, thank you folks for those of you who donated for us to help children of lesser means, so we could do that. We can gift cards for Christmas and all that. We appreciate it. If you still want to do that, you can put that in the wicker basket, any donations for that, and we'll use that to add to what we have for kids that we bought some things for, okay? So thank you. And blessings to you folks online for your donations that keep coming in. We appreciate it. All right. Your love offering held to your heart with total sincerity and intention. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Thank you. So can anyone share what they heard or learned today that made the most sense? Just a couple people this time to save time. Yes?
Of course, all of it.
All of it. Good.
But the highlight that was the most touching in my heart was that the manifestation of a project that I've been wanting to do is going to fall in love with me.
Oh, nice.
So that was spectacular.
Right on. The manifestation of falling in love with you. Good job. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes?
Not having to rationalize something that wow.
Yeah, not having to rationalize things that wow you. You know, and by the way, this celebration of miracles, the celebration and miracles of manifestation, it's to celebrate miracles of manifestation. That concept is huge because you do get manifestations. It's not all conceptual or theoretical. You'll see the results of these dedications. The Wiseman, in case you didn't know this, most people don't know this. The Wiseman became commonly what we call to some of your well-known ascended masters, by the way. Those three wise men. They didn't just do a nice job by listening to the stars and guided to Jesus' birth. These individuals were dedicated the way I said we need to be through the desert and birthing the Christ, these stages I talked about. These guys did that. They did that. So therefore they were rewarded. Not only did they become ascended masters, they were given a choice. Most people do not know this. Those wise men were given a choice as to whether they ever needed to incarnate again. Just because they held true to what we talked about today. So there are perks. Live the Christ life. You get to wake up. You get to be more at peace, less troubled, less drama. You see through stuff more when it comes to relationships. You don't settle. I mean, that's one of the tricky ones, is you don't settle as much. That's actually one of the more challenging ones. Because when you don't settle as much, you go, well, this is great. Might as well just get a rocking chair and some knitting tools and sit on my porch and forget about life because nobody comes around anymore, No, that's just a phase. If you go through that at all, and usually you do, it's a phase. But then you start to realize it's not about people not resonating with me as I raise in consciousness, which true, that's true. But as I rise in consciousness, I find different kinds of people I hang around. And also, it's very important, you'll find yourself hanging around people that seem sometimes very unevolved, but you don't care. Now, it doesn't mean you're getting into harmful circumstance kinds of groups of people, but I'm talking about people that just seem mundane. It's fine, because you're making such a huge difference by standing in the same space with them, and them with you. See, what it really comes down to is my ability to see the Christ in you helps me to see it in myself. So as our relationships become healed, holy, so too does my consciousness. That's what it's all about. It's not about my fixed relationships that are nicer ones. The ones I choose to make holy. And I'll close with this. Helen who wrote A Course in Miracles, she was really problematic. So someone said the other day, well, why would Jesus choose someone who's such a pain? Why didn't he get somebody? Well, here's why. Because by some of the most challenging people in our lives and our ability to see the Christ in them makes a holy experience so miracles can come. In other words, by Jesus choosing Helen, who was a pain, and creating, I love you anyway, Helen. Oh, Jesus, who do you think you are? I don't want to believe in this stuff. I'm a psychotherapist. I'm a therapist. I must need hospitalization. I'm hearing voices. And he's like, just chill, lady. I'm just going to give you some great material. Write it down. What makes you think you know what's right? She just did everything to fight him. I love you anyway. I love you anyway. And every so often he'd throw in, and my God, lady. But still, most of the time, I love you anyway. I love you anyway. I love you anyway. And it's pretty cool if you think about it. But in so doing, he created a healed, holy relationship with her. What came of it is not only miracles, but a book on miracles. So I'm not telling you to enable or allow abusive people, but what I'm saying is in your ability to love, forgive them, even if you say bye-bye, love and forgive, that's where the miracles come. More than any other thing you might think you can do to create miracles. You can lie on a bed of nails. You can fast for 40 days, 40 nights. Forgiveness is 1,000 times, 100,000 times more effective and faster in every way and efficient than anything else you can do to create a miracle level of consciousness. So remember that, okay?